Hey there. I'm honestly glad you've chosen to watch this, and if you tap that subscribe button, you'll take an already good day and make it better. Anyway, let's get to it. 3 months, Lauren. Why are these bills still unpaid? My voice stayed calm, but the paper in my hand felt like it could set the air on fire. On the table between us lay 3 envelopes, stark red warnings stacked in quiet judgment. She didn't even look up from her phone. Do I look like your assistant? I blinked. What? Finally, her eyes lifted, cool, almost detached. I'm not your secretary, David. If you care that much about keeping the lights on, maybe stop lecturing and pay them yourself. The gall was breathtaking. I pulled in one breath, then another. We agreed. You'd take care of the household accounts so I could focus on work. I trusted you. Now they're threatening to cut off our water. Her lips tilted into a smirk. Maybe they should. Might wash away some of that self-pity you love drowning in. That was it. I pushed my chair back slowly, controlling the shake in my hands. What's actually going on with you? The late nights, the dodging questions, the way you treat me like I'm some chore you forgot to check off? She slid her phone into her purse with deliberate precision. God, David, you sound like some bad soap opera. Why don't you write this in your little diary? You think this is a joke? My voice rose. This is our life, our home, and you treat it like a hotel room you wander in and out of. She straightened her blazer like she was putting on armor. This stopped feeling like a home when you became a walking planner. You schedule affection, you speak in charts, and you know what else? Leaning in, she spoke soft and sharp. I'm finished, David. There it was. I stayed still for a beat. Then why are you still here? Her eyes flicked toward the door. Believe me, I ask myself that every morning. The silence swelled, heavy and unbroken. My heart wasn't pounding from heartbreak. It was the clean, steady heat of anger. She moved toward the door. Where are you going? It came out sounding like an order. Business meeting. At 8:30 in the morning, dressed like that? She looked back with a smile that curdled my blood. You want to be the man of the house? Then act like it. The door slammed hard enough to shake the walls, and for the first time in months I didn't stay sitting. I grabbed my keys and went after her. This wasn't about the bills anymore. This was about not letting someone else rewrite my story. City lights slid across the windshield as I kept her car in sight. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. She drove with the easy confidence of someone taking a familiar route, steady, unhurried, not once checking the mirror. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe a cafe, a gym, an office tower. But when she pulled into the valet lane of a glittering high-rise I'd only walked past before, I knew we'd crossed into something different. She stepped out of her car like she owned the street, heels striking in crisp rhythm. No phone, no hesitation, just a straight path inside, like she belonged there, or like he did. I waited 10 minutes before following. The elevator opened at the top floor into a rooftop bar, bright, refined, the kind of place made for quiet talks, not boardroom deals. I slipped into a shadowed booth, and there she was, 2 tables away, angled so she wouldn't see me. Across from her sat a man with silver in his hair and a loosened silk tie. Wealth that whispered in the details, not the price tag. She laughed. Not the polite work meeting laugh, her real one, the one that bent at the edges like it belonged to a private memory. He reached across, touched her hand. She didn't pull away. My phone was in my hand before I knew it. One picture, no flash. Her hand in his, their heads close. Then the kiss, slow, certain, intimate. Not the kind you give someone you just met. The air turned heavy in my chest. 3 hours ago, I'd been eating breakfast and arguing about bills. Now I was here. I left without a sound, moving like noise might break the fragile new reality. In my car, I stared at the photo. No shouting, no tears. Just the quiet click of something locking into place. I saved it in a secure folder, then deleted it from my phone. Not out of fear, but because this was going to be a strategy. When I got home, the empty rooms pressed in. She wouldn't be back for hours. And when she was, Her smile would be smooth, her story rehearsed. I'd let her keep it, for now. Much later, the door eased open. Keys clinked in the bowl, heels came off in practiced motions. I sat at the dining table, scrolling aimlessly, phone face down like a weapon waiting to be drawn. She hummed in the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and said it, calm, easy. The mentoring lunch went great. He's ready to invest after all. She spoke as if she'd been preparing for this very moment for months. Steady, certain, no trace of hesitation. Like a monologue she'd polished in the mirror of some dimly lit hotel room. I gave the smallest nod. "That's convincing," I said softly. She shifted her weight against the counter, her posture loose, her expression open, as though there were nothing in the world she needed to hide. The meeting, she told me, had dragged on. Endless. Exhausting. They always drained her. I let a faint smile curl at the corner of my mouth. "You've got a gift for getting people to agree with you." Her gaze flickered for less than a second, just enough for me to notice. "It's part of the role," she said, lifting the stem of her wine glass. I lowered my eyes to the laptop, fingers pretending to tap out lines of text, though my mind was elsewhere. I could still picture her fingers brushing against his, her thumb tracing the back of his hand. I could still see the kiss. How effortlessly it happened. How many times had I swallowed lies like that without even realizing? She crossed the room and dropped into the chair opposite me, stretching her legs like someone completely at ease. "And you? Was your day quiet?" "Same as usual," I replied. The trick was to keep it bare. No probing, no hints of suspicion, nothing that would give her a reason to weave a fresh narrative or dissolve into tears. If I so much as slipped, she'd twist the scene, turn it emotional, redirect. But silence. Silence made the walls close in on her. It was already taking effect. She wanted me to press, to challenge her. When I didn't, she reached across the table, fingertips brushing mine. "Something wrong? You feel distant." That's when I studied her properly. The gentle wave in her hair, the lacquered lips, the perfume that now smelled faintly like it belonged to someone else. "I'm fine," I said, lying easily. Her smile wavered, the touch of her hand lingering just a moment too long, as though she were gauging my temperature. When she finally pulled back, I caught the tiny crease between her brows, the first fracture in her mask. Good. Later that night, I stayed in the home office while upstairs the water roared against the tiles. The sound carried through the walls. I opened a locked folder on my laptop, and there it was, a photograph of Lauren with him, both laughing like they were untouchable. I moved it to an encrypted server, made 3 backups, closed the machine. Then I sat, listening, the water stopping, the door opening, her bare feet on the carpet, the muted slide of a drawer, the sigh of the mattress. She'd fall asleep thinking she'd come out ahead. And she would keep lying tomorrow. But now I had the sharpest weapon, time. I wouldn't confront her. I'd dismantle her. Before the first hint of daylight, I slipped out of bed without waking her. She didn't know I'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, arranging my strategy like chess pieces finally in plain view. I brewed coffee, poured it into a travel mug, and left the house like it was any other morning. Only this time, I wasn't going to work. I was going to meet Robert, the man in the photo, Robert C. Gaines. A wealth manager. Built his fortune himself. Clever enough to stay out of scandal, arrogant enough to flirt with someone else's wife in the open. He didn't know who I was, yet. I'd spent half the night composing an email from a burner address, posing as Alex Walker, a wealthy client in search of discreet financial management. The bait worked. 20 minutes later. "Happy to meet Mr. Walker. We value privacy. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Gaines Advisory, 19th floor." I chose my sharpest suit, the one from my last promotion celebration. The tie still carried the faint scent of whiskey and victory. This time, it was my shield. The building was every bit as polished as I'd pictured. White marble floors, arched glass walls, assistants in fitted navy dresses, moving with choreographed precision. The receptionist handed me chilled citrus water and praised my punctuality. Then Robert emerged, exactly as I remembered, silver threads in his hair, predatory eyes, and a handshake that lingered too long. He led me into an office with windows so vast they seemed to hold the city in place. No sign of recognition, not even a flicker. That, somehow, felt like an insult. "Alex," he said warmly. "Glad you came. What brings you in?" "I've had some liquid assets for a while now," I said evenly. "Inheritance, a few foreign returns. I'm looking for someone who can help me grow it without drawing attention." Robert's mouth curved like a wolf's. "That's exactly what we excel at." Then came his pitch. Tax havens, offshore accounts, shell corporations masked as development ventures. The jargon was thick, knotted on purpose, meant to make clients feel clever for being in the dark. But I followed every turn, and all of it was being captured by the pen in my jacket, a gift from Lauren, now repurposed. I asked him pointed questions. Could hidden partners take profits? Could names be masked entirely? He had a polished answer for everything, smooth, confident, and damning. "It's all within the law, Alex," he said with a knowing smile. "But not everything needs a spotlight." That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't only about Lauren's infidelity. It was a machine, a network built to conceal and divert. And I wasn't just a bystander. I was already tangled in it. He slid a heavy, silver-stamped brochure across the desk. "Think it over. We'll be ready when you are." I took his hand, gave him a measured smile, and left. Outside, the sunlight hit like heat from a forge, but I welcomed it. Now I had more than suspicion, more than a picture. I had motive, leverage, and a recording. The thread was real, and I intended to pull until the fabric collapsed. Back at home, the folder on my desk felt heavier than paper. Stacks of printed emails, property records, screenshots of shadow websites. Most names had meant nothing to me until I dug deeper. That's when I saw it. Bluehall Consulting, LLC, Delaware. No physical address, immaculate branding. Listed as co-director, my name. David Reed. Not forged. Not a typo. My real social security number, my address, even the phone from my old job. Lauren hadn't just deceived me. She'd used me. The page quivered between my fingers. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was theft dressed as trust. She'd known every login, every form I'd ever signed. She'd handled our taxes. I had handed her everything. And now the blueprint of the trap was clear. Bluehall was just one mask in Robert's collection, each as clean, each as dangerous. No employees, no clock to punch. Just an endless current of money slipping from one empty label to the next until it either dissolved into nothing or morphed into something I couldn't name. These tissue-thin companies scrubbed their surfaces spotless, and somewhere inside that labyrinth, she'd slid me in, silent, unseen, like a ghost owner. I sat in my home office by the window, daylight spilling softly over the stillness of the neighborhood. Children coasted lazily on bikes. A man ambled past with his dog in tow. And I sat there in a house paid for with fraud, unsure whether I was already ensnared in a legal trap I hadn't yet mapped. My heartbeat picked up, cooler, harder than the pain of betrayal, as I opened my laptop again. The state's corporate registry showed Bluehall's paperwork, listing a roster of consultants. Robert's name, predictably, appeared. Two others were obvious fakes. Then my eyes stopped. Lauren. The full name spelled out, Lauren Madeline Reed, right there under financial strategist. I gave a short, humorless laugh. She might as well have signed in red ink. She had never breathed a word of it. The air around me seemed thickened, harder to pull into my lungs. I printed everything. Not a single copy. Stacks of duplicates, redundantly saved. I filed them under harmless names. Tax records, HOA minutes, mundane labels she'd never think twice about. Then I placed the bundle in a locked briefcase I hadn't touched in years, reset the code, and slid the key behind a dusty row of paint cans in the garage. It wasn't paranoia, it was a safeguard. I had no idea where this road would end, but I knew exactly whose hands had paved it. The same hands that curled around me at night. The same person I once thought meant home. Leaning back, my chair gave a quiet creak as my gaze traced the walls, now unfamiliar. Framed photos grinned down from the mantel, sunlit beaches, city evenings, each one transformed into possible courtroom exhibits. This wasn't a fling. It was engineered, systematic. I was raw material in her construction. That night I watched her drift about the kitchen, graceful in a way that almost disarmed me. She wore one of the dresses I'd always loved, a deep navy piece that once made me feel lucky just to see her in it. She poured 2 glasses of wine. "Want one?" she asked. My throat was tight. I only nodded. I brought the glass to my lips, barely tasting it. Her smile was faint, but warm. "We should go somewhere. Just the 2 of us." She said it as if she hadn't already cast me in her other story. I mirrored her smile and sipped, because I finally had something she didn't expect: awareness. You can tell a lot about someone from their computer, not the obvious things like browsing history or saved logins, but the digital shadows they've forgotten. Those folders they don't even remember making. The way a window slams shut a second too fast when you walk in. Lauren's laptop was always off limits, locked, password protected. "Work stuff," she'd say, as if I'd dropped dead from boredom at a spreadsheet. But that night, with her in the shower and some moody indie song spilling from the Bluetooth speaker, I stepped into the den. Her laptop was there, awake, no password prompt, as though it had been waiting for me. I moved like my breathing might disturb it. The only sound was the soft whirl of the fan. The desktop was unnervingly bare, just one folder, Client Backups 2022. Inside were dozens of innocuously named folders: Acorn, Finch Tree, Noble Blue, Shells. I opened them in turn: account ledgers, bank statements, signed contracts, wire transfer receipts. In the 6th folder, Cypress, I saw a file titled poweroff_dered.pdf. My gut went cold. Inside was a scanned power of attorney, giving Lauren M. Reed full legal and financial authority over David J. Reed. My name, my supposed signature, my handwriting style, copied perfectly. It wasn't mine. She'd forged me, not sloppily but with precision, studying my pen strokes from past documents, recreating them with surgical patience. This was no amateur trick. This was mastery. I copied every file, emails, PDFs, all of it, onto an encrypted flash drive that disappeared into my coat pocket. While the transfer ran, I opened her email. There it was, the rest of the web. Conversations with Robert, subject lines like transfer set 3 and ready by end of day. Money running through Bluehall, Cypress, and other names I didn't recognize, all of them connected by her architecture. She hadn't stumbled into this. She had built it, and I was her ready-made fall guy. The files finished. I removed the drive, cleaned every trace of my access, and closed the laptop with deliberate care. Back in the bedroom, she was brushing her damp hair. "You coming to bed?" she asked casually. "In a bit," I said. She caught my reflection in the mirror and smiled. I smiled back because the picture was now complete. The cheating, the shell companies, the forged authority. This house wasn't a home. It was a crime scene, and I was the only one leaving fingerprints worth saving. 3 days later, the email came. No subject, no name, just an unfamiliar address, and in the preview, a single sentence. "I can't stay quiet anymore." I almost deleted it, but something, instinct maybe, made me click. The message wavered, as if typed by shaking hands. "Mr. Reed, you don't know me, but I work with Lauren. I've seen things. A month ago, she asked me to notarize some documents. I didn't think twice until I recognized your name. I shouldn't be sending this, but I can't be part of it anymore. One looks forged. I'm sorry." It was signed only Emily K. No surname, no phone. Attached were 6 scanned pages. The first froze me in place. Another power of attorney, this time notarized, Emily's initials stamped beside it. The date was recent. The name was mine. The signature wasn't. She hadn't just forged me, she'd gotten it notarized, likely telling Emily it was routine estate paperwork. But Emily now understood otherwise, and she was scared enough to send me this from a burner account in the middle of the night. I studied the document. Every line read like a confession. Not from Emily, but from Lauren, telling the truth through someone else's hands. The rest of the pages filled in the missing pieces. Transfer approvals, money bouncing between shells, each step documented and traceable. Every sign pointed to a single, irrefutable conclusion. Lauren had built a kingdom of deceit, and I was the cornerstone of her design. But the foundations were beginning to shift. Emily's message arrived like the missing puzzle piece I hadn't realized I needed. Not incriminating evidence, not a trail of numbers, but a break in allegiance. Someone from the inside had finally chosen a side. That meant her defenses could be pierced. That night I printed out each file, arranged them in precise stacks, stapled and labeled them, and secured Emily's email into my encrypted archive. Whether her risk was misguided or not, it would count for something when the downfall came. I slid the freshly assembled packet into my briefcase, letting the latch click shut with the satisfying finality of a judge's gavel. Upstairs, Lauren slept, perhaps lost in visions of immaculate ledgers and flawless facades, or worse, a life where the reckoning never arrived. But my days of dreaming were gone. I wasn't broken. I wasn't drifting. I was constructing something of my own now. Not a case. A day of judgment. He arrived without a hint of warning. It was mid-afternoon, a quiet lull in my schedule. The office hummed with the faint buzz of fluorescent lighting and the muffled staccato of keyboards from distant rooms. I saw the receptionist leading a man toward my door, her smile stretched too thin, her eyes offering an unspoken apology. Recognition hit before his name did, Robert Gaines. The same tailored tie, the same posture steeped in arrogance. But this time there was no rooftop bravado, no Lauren at his side drinking in his every word. Just a man who looked like he had begun to feel watched. He skipped the small talk. "David," he said, smiling in form but not in spirit. "Thought we should talk." I rose from my chair, every muscle taut. "You found my office," I said. "I find everything," he replied smoothly, stepping inside. "It's my business." I didn't invite him to sit. He stayed on his feet, scanning the room like someone used to being the most dangerous person present. "I'll get to the point," he said, pulling a folded paper from his jacket. "You've been digging, asking questions, contacting people, rooting through files that don't concern you. That kind of curiosity, it can be dangerous." He set the paper down on my desk. A formal warning, part legal threat, part corporate intimidation, accusing me of harassment, defamation, and business interference. I read it slowly, steadying my pulse. "You came here in person," I said, "just to deliver this?" "Not this," he corrected. "A warning. I like to keep things clean." "And you think this," I gestured to the document, "is clean?" His gaze locked on mine. "You're in over your head. If you go public, or worse, involve the authorities, you won't be the only one who suffers." "That a threat?" I asked evenly. "A courtesy," he said, stepping closer. "Lauren told me you were the quiet kind. Measured. I respected that. But now you're stirring up dust that should stay settled." Her name lit something in me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. "Listen closely, Robert. I know what you've done. I know what she's done. And if you think I'm the type to fold under pressure, I'm not." For the first time, I saw a crack in his composure, subtle but telling. He wasn't here to intimidate me. He was here because the walls were closing in. "I'm not building anything," I said. "It's already built." I let the silence stretch. Let him imagine how much I'd uncovered, how well it was documented, how far it had already been sent. He smoothed his jacket like it was armor. "You think you know the game," he said. "You don't know the rules." I don't need to, I told him. I just need to flip the switch. His jaw tightened. He took the paper, folding it with deliberate care. Your choice, he murmured, but once this turns legal, you can't put it back in the box. That's exactly the idea. He left without another word. The click of the door behind him was as sharp as a bullet sliding into a chamber. I lowered myself back into my chair, letting the quiet settle in. My hands were steady, but a cold heaviness lodged itself in my chest. He wasn't bluffing. If I pushed this into official channels, it would be all-out war. Lawyers, headlines, my life picked apart piece by piece. And Lauren? She'd spin the narrative, cast herself as the wronged party, maybe even the mastermind who saw it all coming. They'd paint me as jealous, controlling, unstable. But the truth comes at a cost, and I was ready to pay. That night, Lauren behaved as if nothing had shifted. She cooked pasta, played soft music, poured us each a glass of wine. I sipped mine slowly, letting her recount her grueling day. I wasn't avoiding the confrontation anymore. I was setting the stage. Very soon, I'd have both her and Robert in the same room, the evidence laid bare between us, and I wouldn't need to say a word. The truth would speak for itself. I made the call from a park bench. The open air felt cleaner, freer, away from her walls, away from her eyes. The wind bit through my coat. The metal seat was cold. Somewhere nearby, children laughed, oblivious to the fault line I was about to crack open. Jacob Tanner, came the voice on the other end, an old friend, an attorney who could read more in what I didn't say than in what I did. It's me, I said. I need a favor, and it has to look official. A pause. You want them on edge, he said. More than that, I replied. I want them to feel the floor shifting under their feet. It was a short call. He knew I wasn't ringing to blow off steam. He knew I had the goods. He knew I didn't make empty moves. The plan was simple, a staged inquiry, wrapped in the appearance of legitimate oversight, delivered through the right legal channels. Not criminal, not enforceable, but convincing enough to make a man like Robert sweat. 2 days later it began. One email, polished, official, stamped with legal headers, sent directly to Robert's firm. Subject, request for review, offshore structures and advisory practices, reference 903 VB. The impact was immediate. Phones lit up. Staff huddled in closed rooms. Documents were rushed to printers. Others fed into shredders. Their website abruptly went offline, citing maintenance. And Robert? By dawn the next day, his name had vanished from the agenda of a prominent finance summit. The tide was turning. At home, the shift felt sharper, almost sweet. Lauren, always composed, flawless, carried a restlessness she couldn't quite hide. At dinner, she asked questions she'd never bothered with before, not in her usual cool, analytical voice, but edged with unease. Did anyone at your office mention my company today? She asked, pausing with her fork over the salmon. I kept my gaze on my plate. Number why? She lingered, fork still in the air. Oh, no reason. We just got an odd email. Probably nothing. I tilted my head slightly. Odd in what way? Something about compliance. Robert's handling it. Her voice faltered when she said his name. I chewed, slow and deliberate. You trust him? Her brow creased. What? Robert, are you sure you trust him? With your job? Your future? The space between us tightened. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I shrugged, just wondering. She didn't touch another bite. That night she tried something she hadn't in weeks. Side by side at the bathroom sink, steam curling up around the mirror, she leaned her head against my shoulder. You've been quiet, she whispered. I miss you. I said nothing. She searched my face. You still love me, right? Shutting off the tap, I dried my hands and met her eyes with a softness I didn't feel. Love doesn't work without truth. You agree? Her lips parted, but no answer came. I walked out first. The next morning, she was already on the phone before I'd poured my coffee, voice low and urgent from the hallway. The walls carried just enough. I'm not safe anymore. He's different. No, he hasn't said anything, but I'm sure he knows. Even through the door, I caught the tremor in her tone. I stirred my coffee, letting the bitterness rest on my tongue like a quiet promise. She didn't yet realize how much I'd pieced together, that every scrap of her scheme was now in my possession. Not Robert's, not the firm's, mine. And soon I'd walk into her office, and the empire she thought she ruled would collapse in her sight. For now, I let her writhe. Because I'd learned something. Justice doesn't always come crashing. Sometimes it arrives like a footstep you never hear. Through the glass walls of Lauren's office, I saw everything before stepping in. Her at her desk, Robert at her side, both tense, jaws set, voices clipped. I opened the door. The room went still. Lauren stood first. "David, what are you doing here?" Her voice strained against the mask she wore. Robert didn't move, just studied me like a man bracing for a hit. He had an idea. That mysterious email? He'd guessed the sender, but not this. I crossed the carpet slowly, laying a thick manila folder on her immaculate desk. "Tell me, Lauren," I said evenly, "who's next on your list to betray?" She flinched. Robert stepped forward. "You need to leave." I looked at him once. "You first." He hesitated, then glanced at her. "You said you had this under control." Lauren's eyes darted between us. "David, what is this?" I opened the folder and fanned its contents across the desk like cards in a final hand. Forged powers of attorney, damning emails, encrypted files, shell company documents linking her name to mine, and the photograph. Her and Robert on a rooftop, hands clasped, lips meeting. "I told you," I said, "you could lie to me, but not forever." Robert snatched a page, scanning until the color drained from his face. "Where did you get this?" "You didn't hide your trail," I replied. Turning to Lauren, I added, "You used my name, my credentials, my trust." She came around the desk, eyes bright with tears. "David, please, I never meant—" "No," I cut in. "You did mean it. That's the problem." Her voice wavered. "I was scared. Robert said we'd be fine, that no one could trace it." Robert spun to her. "Don't put this on me. You swore it was airtight." "And you believed me," she shot back. "I watched their alliance crumble in real time." Lauren turned to me again, tears spilling. "We can fix this. I didn't want to lose you. I just didn't know how to stop." I stayed silent. She reached for my hand. "Don't," I said, stepping away. "It's over." Her arms fell to her sides. Then she collapsed, knees hitting the floor. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, voice raw. "I'll do anything. Just don't leave me like this." Robert backed away. "You're on your own." He walked out without looking back. She folded in on herself, fists clutching her skirt like a lifeline. "Please, please don't go." I bent to pick up the photo she'd dropped. "You made this choice," I said quietly. "Step by step." She shook her head. "No, he manipulated me. He promised you'd never find out." "But I did," I said, "and I didn't rage. I didn't destroy it all in one blow. I waited, and that scared you most." Her sobs turned jagged. "I can't lose everything." She already had. I stood, adjusted my coat, and walked out with the folder, leaving her kneeling on the polished floor, surrounded by her own ruin. I didn't look back. The courtroom was colder than I'd expected, not from the air, though the vents whispered above, but in the way it stripped people down. Lauren sat across the aisle, hair pulled tight, swimming in an oversized blazer. She looked smaller, not in size, but in presence, her confidence gutted, replaced by bare, visible fear. She didn't meet my eyes. Robert sat 3 chairs down, far from her. Whatever had bound them was gone. Now they were just opponents, each calculating how to throw the other under faster. Her attorney tried to recast her as a pawn. A naive partner ensnared by a ruthless financial manipulator, too innocent to see the trap. But forged signatures tell their own story. So do notarized seals. When the enlarged copy of the falsified power of attorney appeared before the court, her defense crumbled without a sound. No gasps, no outbursts, only the weight of proof settling in the room. Robert stayed silent, following his lawyer's advice, but the hollow look in his eyes said more than any admission. Regret? Not a chance. That wasn't in him. It wasn't rage over defeat that gripped me, it was a colder, sharper thing. When I spoke, my words were pared down to the bare essentials, drained of feeling. My address to the court was deliberate and exact, like a scalpel moving through flesh. I presented dates, I submitted exhibits, I constructed the sequence of events piece by piece. Not once did I speak of treachery. This was no longer about the collapse of a marriage. It had shifted into a fight for the preservation of my own name. And that name was no longer theirs to stain. The judgment came without delay. The court found Robert Gaines and Lauren Reed equally responsible, both guilty of coordinating financial schemes, committing identity theft, and falsifying official documents. The punishments were severe, crushing financial penalties, the stripping away of professional licenses, and the impending prospect of prison, though final sentencing would wait for the appeal. Yet the harshest blow wasn't legal. It was the public unmasking. Lauren looked at me only once. As I moved past her, her hand caught my sleeve, the grip unsteady. "David, please. I didn't realize what I was doing." Her voice was faint, trembling in the stillness, the words dissolving between us. I did not pause. But just before crossing the threshold, I gave my reply. I had stepped aside so she could fall on her own, and I bore no remorse in admitting it. Outside, the sunlight hit me like a blade to the eyes. I loosened my tie and inhaled deeply, as though breaching the surface after months submerged in murky depths. It wasn't victory I felt, not satisfaction, not even relief, only a vast stillness. The conflict had burned itself out, and the wreckage left behind no longer belonged to me. I had carried the truth to its rightful end. Now I was untethered. And so, the story closes here. I'd be glad to know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. If these words resonated, I invite you to explore the other stories on this channel. Until we meet again, my friend.